The world's tallest tree is right in the United States, and now visiting it is forbidden. If you decided to stick it to the law and go see the tree anyway, it could cost you up to 6 months in jail and $5,000 in fines, along with, of course, a guilty conscience. So it seems like people are pretty serious about keeping this tree off limits. But why? We visit national parks, hike, and spend time in nature regularly, so why can't we take a stroll over here? Well, answering this question shows us how having the spotlight on you isn't always a good thing. It forces us to confront the potential detriments of human exploration and calls for us to ask ourselves, is it all worth it? I'll let you watch and decide for yourself. This is the story of Hyperion, the world's tallest tree. Following its discovery in 2006, Hyperion was actually shrouded in mystery and secrecy for a long time. For starters, it's very much located off the beaten trail, well into the deepest parts of the Redwood Forest. This means that we can only reach the tree with a whole lot of bushwhacking and trekking through wild land. But perhaps what is the most curious is how hard people worked to keep its remote location a secret. While some scientists did know Hyperion's exact location along with the directions on how to get to the tree, most of the public was left in the dark about this. There were, of course, a few adventurous hikers who plodded out into the forest to look for it, but the information on how to get there was tough to find, and so not a lot of people went out to look. As a result, it seemed that the world's tallest tree was kept hidden even after its discovery. That is, until the internet changed everything. But before we get to that, let's talk a little more about what makes Hyperion so special. Since researchers discovered it in 2006, Hyperion has held the title of the world's tallest tree ever since. It towers in the sky at an astounding 380 feet. For reference, that's taller than both the Statue of Liberty in New York and Big Ben in London. So this tree is tall. Redwood trees are known for being giants, with the average redwood standing between 200 and 240 feet. But Hyperion is on another level, literally. Interestingly, Hyperion may be the tallest tree in the world, but in age, it's pretty average. We estimate that Hyperion is between 600 and 800 years old, which is rather old, but compared to most redwood trees, it's pretty standard. I thought this was really cool to learn because we often associate big, tall trees with being very old, but this isn't the case here. Rather than having many, many years to grow, Hyperion's height is likely due to being in favorable environmental conditions, and perhaps also being a particularly resilient redwood. Hyperion is also not unique in its width. There are many, many trees like General Sherman that are much more impressive to view from the base. Because of this, even if you hiked to Hyperion, you probably wouldn't be able to tell which one it was because all the trees look very, very similar from the ground. But still, Hyperion was special in a very big way. Hyperion was famous, and even though a lot of people really wanted to see the world's tallest tree, they weren't able to simply because they didn't know how to get there. But that all changed when somebody published the tree's location online. A website posted the coordinates and directions for how to hike to the world's tallest tree. And suddenly, finding Hyperion was less of a daring, difficult journey into the unknown and more something the average person could do. They still would have to bushwhack and navigate through the forest, but with directions and a location in mind, Hyperion became much more accessible. And not soon after this, it became illegal. Just as people began to make the trek out to see the tree, the journey to Hyperion was deemed forbidden. In August of 2022, just a few years ago, it was deemed illegal to even go near Hyperion. To be more specific here too, there is an entire area of the forest that is off limits. It's not just the area immediately surrounding Hyperion. And so now we return to the question of why. Why was Hyperion shrouded in secrecy for so long and then made inaccessible entirely? The world has been made infinitely smaller with the spread of the internet and the ability to easily travel. And all the while, our population has been exponentially growing. This means that when there's a point of interest that pops up, the number of people who can access it has grown by the millions. We see this in the insane number of visitors to our national parks every year. Great Smoky Mountains had 13 million visitors last year, the Grand Canyon had 5 million, and in 2021, the Redwood Forest itself had 750,000 people come to visit. Think about this then. If even just a tenth of these Redwood visitors decided to hike off trail and look for Hyperion, that is still 75,000 people who are trekking through the woods and leaving their mark. It wasn't long after visitors started to flood to Hyperion's routes that the Park Service realized if they continue to let this happen, Hyperion may not be around much longer. As it would turn out, following the public release of this location, the many people that visited Hyperion actually damaged the ecosystem there. As people trekked to Hyperion, they left their trash and other things along the trail, but perhaps the most innocent, yet most damaging thing they did was make footsteps. Redwood roots are incredibly shallow, reaching down only 12 feet on average. When we walk on the soil above the roots, we compact it, and consequently, we risk damaging the roots, meaning that we risk damaging the very tree we are going to see. And it's not just the roots either. The Redwood Forest is a particularly delicate ecosystem. So hiking off trail tramples sensitive plants that live on and just above the ground. There used to be many ferns that grew at the base of Hyperion, but because people stood there to look and pose for photos, those ferns are now gone. In other words, and to simplify things, in the masses, humans are kind of little wrecking balls, even if we don't mean to be. One person does a small amount of damage, yes, but the cumulative effect of many, many people can actually be devastating. To understand how things are different now, think about if Hyperion had been discovered 200 years ago. How many people would have initially made the trek over to it? Dozens, maybe hundreds? Certainly not the thousands of people that would come today. News of and access to Hyperion would have been mostly limited to people living in the immediately surrounding area. And even if people did want to travel from afar, it was significantly harder to do this, so less travelers would have been able to come. Finally, let's not forget, at this time there were significantly less people on Earth to begin with, meaning that there were less potential visitors to come in the first place. Hyperion may be the world's tallest tree, but this also makes it one of the world's most vulnerable. For the natural world, having the spotlight on you isn't necessarily a good thing. Areas like this in nature weren't built to have so much traffic coming in and out. And so, to protect Hyperion and the delicate redwood forest around it, the journey to Hyperion was made illegal. Pretty much everywhere we go to explore, there are built-in trails that help manage foot traffic and keep the damage to a minimum. But still, humans are explorers, and we often want to go a little further, even if it means traveling off the beaten path. So now, my question for you is, what should the limits of human exploration be? I'd love to get a conversation going down in the comments, because I think this is a very big and very interesting topic. Obviously, we all want to see beautiful, awe-inspiring, famous, and fascinating things that our world has to offer. But when does it become too much? Already, even with the built-in trails and facilities that our national parks have, they are still struggling to manage so many visitors. And having too many people come to one place just isn't a good thing for the environment there. So, what are your thoughts? If you want to learn more about the Redwood Forest, I actually have 2 other videos on it talking about some pretty fascinating stuff, so you can click those here and here. If you like this video, please go ahead and leave a like down below. I would really appreciate it, along with a comment telling me your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.